Okay, you can get it in. Yeah, this is very interesting. Yeah, right. Yeah, it looks how it should look. It's really interesting. It's a different type of device, which I just got yesterday. Uh, it, huh? Wonderful. Yes, extras. Anyway, yeah, wait a sec. Yeah, it is. That's right. Okay, so anyway, here we are. We this, we gotovi. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram. Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram. Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Hare Ram. Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Hare Ram. Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram. Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Hare Ram. Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Oh no, this is not it. Oops. Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Shri Krishna. Chaitanya. We are streaming. We are streaming. There we are. Look at that. We are streaming. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram. Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram. Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram. Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram. Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram. Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram. Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram. Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram. Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram. Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram. Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram. Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram. Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna. Oops. Yeah. You know this AM? We have to do it on this one too. Like this, it's on A, right? Put it on M. Oi. Oh no. Somehow put it back on A. Something happened. Something really major. Okay, it's back. I don't know what happened. There was some pressure. I think there was some pressure. So now it's on A, yeah?
Yeah.
Without touching anything else, put it on M. Without touching anything else. Okay. That's, yeah, okay. We'll see how it goes. Rama Rama Hari 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 Krishna 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 Hari 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 Rama Hari Rama 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 Hari 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 Krishna 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 Hari 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 Rama Hari Rama 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 Hari 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 Krishna 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 Hari 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 Ram Hari Ram 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 Hari 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 Krishna Krishna Hari 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 Ram Hari Ram Rama Rama Hari 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 Krishna Krishna Hari 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 Ram Hari Ram Rama Rama Hari 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 Krishna. This is a Nikon Z6 with 85 millimeter 1.8 lens. Means it's a good lens. It's not a zoom lens. Rama Rama Hari 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 Krishna Hari 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 Ram Hari Ram 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 Hari 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 Krishna Krishna Hari 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 Ram Hari Ram Rama Rama Hari 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 Krishna Hari 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 Ram Hari Ram Rama Rama Hari 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 Krishna Hari 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 Ram Hari Ram Rama Rama Hari 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 Krishna Hari 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 Ram Hari Ram Rama Rama Hari 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 Krishna Hari 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 Ram Hari Ram Rama Rama Hari 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 Krishna Hari 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 Ram Hari Ram Rama Rama Hari 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 Krishna Hari 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 Ram Hari Ram Rama Rama Hari 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 Krishna Hari 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 Ram. It's not so good. So come back, put it on A again, without touching particularly the cable that's sticking up, because and then on the screen at the back, tap my chest or sort of neck. Got it? Okay. Now put it on M. It's on M? Okay. Rama Rama Hari 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 Krishna Hari Krishna. Yeah, that's better. Hari Ram Hari Ram 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 Hari 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 Krishna Krishna Hari 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 Ram Hari Ram Rama Rama Hari 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 Krishna Krishna Hari 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 Ram Hari Ram Rama Rama Hari 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 Krishna Krishna Hari 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 Ram Hari Ram Rama Rama Hari 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 Krishna Krishna Hari 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 Ram Hari Ram Rama Rama Hari 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 Krishna Krishna Hari 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 Ram Hari Ram Rama Rama Hari 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 Krishna Krishna Hari 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 Ram Hari Ram Rama Rama Hari 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 Krishna Krishna Hari 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 Ram Hari Ram Rama Rama Hari 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 Krishna Krishna Hari 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 Ram Hari Ram Rama Rama Hari 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 Krishna Krishna Hari 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 Ram Hari Ram Rama Rama Hari 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 Krishna Krishna Hari 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 Ram Hari Ram Rama Rama Hari 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 Krishna Krishna Hari 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 Ram Hari Ram Rama Rama Hari 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 Krishna Krishna Hari 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 Ram Hari Ram Rama Rama Hari 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 Krishna Krishna Hari 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 Ram Hari Ram Rama Rama Hari 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 Krishna Krishna Hari 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 Ram Hari Ram Rama Rama Hari 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 Krishna Krishna Hari 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 Ram Hari Ram Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram. Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram. Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram. Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram. Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare. What time do you have? What time do you have? Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna. It's 10:02. And on that clock also?
Yeah.
10:02. Okay. Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna. And on there's a little screen on top of the camera, on the top. What does it say? F4. It says F4, okay. And ISO?
ISO hyphen slash A4000.
A4000. And anything else it says?
No.
That's all. Okay, interesting. And this one, what does it say?
It says 50, then it says F3.5.
F3.5, okay.
Then ISO
Yeah.
dash A 2500.
Oh, okay, interesting. All right. Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram. Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram. Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram. Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram. Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram. Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram. Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Ram. Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram. Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram. Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram. Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram. Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram. Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram. Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Hare Ram Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Ram. Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Ram. Rama Rama Hari 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 Krishna Hari Krishna 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 Hari 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 Rama Hari Rama Rama Hari 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 Krishna Hari Krishna 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 Hari 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 Ram 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 Hari 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 Krishna 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 Hari 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 Ram Rama Rama Hari 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 Krishna 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 Hari 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 Ram Rama Rama Hari Hari Shri Krishna Chaitanya Pradhananda Shri Hari Vari Gadada Shivas Hari Govardhana Hari Krishna 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 Hari 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 Ram Rama Rama Hari 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 Krishna 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 Hari 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 Ram Rama Rama Hari 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 Krishna 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 Hari 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 Ram Rama Rama Hari 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 Krishna Krishna Hari 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 Ram Rama Rama Hari 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 Krishna Krishna Hari 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 Ram Rama Rama Hari 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 Krishna 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 Hari 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 Ram Ram Hari 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 Krishna Krishna Hari 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 Ram Rama Rama Hari 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 Krishna Krishna Hari 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 Ram Rama Rama Hari 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 Krishna Krishna Hari 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 Ram. You got to watch what time you have. Okay. Rama Rama Hari 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 Krishna Krishna Hari 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 Ram Rama Hari 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 Krishna Krishna Hari 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 Ram Rama Hari 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 Krishna Krishna Hari 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 Ram Rama Hari 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 Krishna Krishna Hari 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 Ram Rama Hari 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 Krishna Krishna Hari 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 Ram Rama Hari 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 Krishna Krishna Hari 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 Ram Rama Hari 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 Krishna Krishna Hari 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 Ram Rama Hari 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 Ram Rama Hari 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 Krishna Krishna Hari 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 Ram Rama Hari 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 Krishna Krishna Hari 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 Ram Rama Hari 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 Krishna Krishna Hari 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 Ram Hari 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 Krishna Krishna Hari 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 Ram Rama Hari 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 Krishna Hari 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 Ram Rama Hari 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 Krishna Hari 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 Ram Rama Hari 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 Krishna Hari 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 Ram Rama Hari 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 Krishna Hari 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 Ram Hari 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 Krishna Hari 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 Ram Rama Hari 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 Krishna Hari 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 Ram Hari 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 Krishna Hari 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 Ram Hari 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 Krishna Hari 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 Rama 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 Hari 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna. How's the image, Deva Prabhu? Are you there? Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Is Deva Prabhu, are you there? Anyway, okay. Looks okay to me. So, Hare Krishna devotees, welcome to the... Oh, let me turn off the cross sound. I'll do it again. All right. Okay, right. So, Hare Krishna devotees, welcome to the 20th evening of our Nectar of Devotion seminar. Let us begin, of course, by reading our dedication to the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. Nana Shastra Vicharanaika Nipano Sadharma Samstapako Lokanam Hitakarino Tribhuvane Manyo Sharanya Karo Radha Krishna Padaravinda Bhajana Nandena Mataliko Vande Rupa Sanatana Raghuyago Shri Jiva Gopalako Vande Rupa Sanatana Raghuyago Shri Jiva Gopalako. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the 6 Goswamis, namely Sri Sanatan Goswami, Sri Rupa Goswami, Sri Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, Sri Raghunath Das Goswami, Sri Jiva Goswami, and Sri Gopal Bhatta Goswami, who are very expert in scrutinizingly studying all the revealed scriptures with the aim of establishing eternal religious principles for the benefit of all human beings. Thus, they're honored all over the 3 worlds, and they're worth taking shelter of because they're absorbed in the mood of the gopis and are engaged in the transcendental loving service of Radha and Krishna. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharne Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Bhastyacharne Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. So devotees, we have made a start on chapter 9 of Nectar of Devotion. Actually, we noted yesterday, we are now right in the middle of our seminar. Actually, we're just slightly over the middle. There's the preface, the introduction, and then 19 chapters. So that's, what is that, 21 chapters, you could say, subdivisions. So we've done preface, introduction, and we're going to finish 9 chapters now. That's 11. So we're more or less right in the middle. Very good, very good. And this evening, we've already, last night we started chapter 9, further considerations of devotional principles. And we began with blasphemy. Blasphemy. And well, we read through blasphemy actually. And so now we go on. The next one it's about the wearing of tilak and tulsi beads, an important part of our culture, our Vaishnav culture. Let's just have a look here. Okay, yeah. Right, so yes, this is number 21. So here then, in regard to tilak and tulsi beads, Prabhupada discusses, let's just have a look here. What now? Let me just find my place. Yeah, okay. So in the first paragraph, Srila Prabhupada quotes Padma Purana. Persons who put tulsi beads on the neck, who mark 12 places of their bodies as Vishnu temples with Vishnu's symbolic representations, the 4 items held in the 4 hands of Lord Vishnu, conch, mace, disc, and lotus, and who have Vishnu tilak on their foreheads, are to be understood as the devotees of Lord Vishnu in this world. Their presence makes the world purified, and anywhere they remain, they make that place as good as Vaikuntha. And then the second paragraph is from Skanda Purana, and it's Skanda Purana, yeah, Skanda Purana. Okay. And there it said that persons who are decorated with tilak or gopi chandan and who mark their bodies all over with the holy names of the Lord, and on whose necks and breasts there are tulsi beads, are never approached by the Yamadutas. We mentioned the other night, I don't know if you remember, we mentioned the other night that Srila Prabhupada said that if we do not have tilak on our forehead, then our head looks like what? A graveyard. Ugh. I've got prominent tilak on. I've got this really good tilak. Anyway, okay, that's the grace of the Lord. And then Prabhupada, in that second paragraph, after having quoted Skanda Purana, Prabhupada refers, because those that Padma Purana verse and Skanda Purana, those are quoted by Srila Rupa Goswami. Now, Prabhupada himself refers to Srimad Bhagavatam, 6th canto, the story of Ajamil, and this would be from, I would say, the 3rd chapter, if I'm not mistaken, the 3rd chapter of the 6th canto, where Lord Yamaraj instructs the Yamadutas, after the Yamadutas have returned from their unsuccessful mission with Ajamil, trying to take Ajamil and bring him to Lord Yamaraj. So they were intercepted by the Vishnu Dutas. You probably know the story, it's a bit of a long story. And the Vishnu Dutas made it clear to them, and the Yamadutas could not deny it, that because Ajamil had chanted the holy name of the Lord, just as the time of death was just upon him, so the Yamadutas couldn't take him. The Vishnu Dutas, they were the ones to take him. So the Yamadutas went back to Yamaraj and complained that we thought you were the one who decides what happens to all these dying or people who have just died. But now we hear there's some higher authority who can contradict you, and he has contradicted you right now. So what is happening? Because they don't know. They never read Bhagavad Gita. They just don't know about these things. They just know their master, Yamaraj, and just how powerful he is. How just incredibly extraordinary Yamaraj is. So they assumed he's the topmost person. So then Yamaraj explained that actually it's the Supreme Personality of Godhead who is higher than me, and I have to answer to him. And whenever, if ever or whenever you encounter any of his devotees, you cannot touch them. You just cannot touch them. So as Prabhupada says, Yamaraj gave clear instructions to his assistants not to approach the Vaishnavas. Those either or, those who are chanting the holy names, or those who have tulsi beads on their necks. This is why we have tulsi beads. Ultimately, this is why, because sooner or later, our day will come, devotees. Who knows who will be first? It could be anyone sitting here in this room, or anyone out there in Zoom land, or anyone in Facebook land. Sure, you just can't say. So yes, so our time will come. So we must be ready with our neck beads on, our tilak on, and chanting the holy names of the Lord. And yes, so Yamaraj, he's really emphatic about it. Just don't go near them. Just don't have anything to do with them. So we go on to the next one, number 22. We are advised, we are instructed to write the names of the Lord on the body. So it's not only tilak. You can use tilak, although Padma Purana is quoted here. A person whose body is decorated with the pulp of sandalwood, with paintings of the holy name of the Lord, is delivered from all sinful reactions. And after his death, he goes directly to Krishna Loka to live in association with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sure, that's amazing. Paintings of the holy name. You can paint it on yourself if you want, if you're a bit of an artist. Otherwise, you can get these metal stamp things and you can stamp it on. Huh? Oh, okay. You can have it tattooed on. Oh, Krishna. Oh, Haribol. When I was young, tattoos were so out. They were so totally out that you wouldn't dream of being seen with half a tattoo on. They were just too much out. Oh yeah. They were for the seamen, the men who worked on the boats. Hare Krishna. Anyway, Hare Bol. Yeah, so you can get some of these stamps and stamp Hare Krishna in Sanskrit, in Bengali, Radhe, Radhe, and it's nice. It's nice, yeah. This is what Srila Rupa Goswami has told us. So it's not just a matter of having sandalwood on your body, just some sandalwood, but the main point is the holy name, holy names. And then at the time of death, you'll go directly to Krishna Loka. Number 23, accepting flower garlands. Okay. Well, there's a fair amount there. So the Dwaraka Mahatmya. Wait a minute. Where are we? Where's the Dwaraka Mahatmya? What has happened? That must be a mistake. Oh no, okay, that's the next one. So yeah, Uddhava says to Krishna, my dear Krishna, I have taken things which you have used and enjoyed, such as garlands of flowers, scented oils, garments and ornaments, and I eat only the remnants of your foodstuff, because I am your menial servant. So therefore I'm sure that I shall not be attacked by the spell of material energy. And let's just see what Prabhupada says here. The purport of this verse is that for any person who simply follows these rules and regulations of decorating the body with the marks of tilak, of gopi chandan, or sandalwood pulp, and who puts on the garlands which were offered to Krishna, there's no question of being conquered by the spell of material energy. At the time of death, there is no question of such a person's being called by the constables of Yamaraj. Even if one does not accept all the Vaishnav principles, but still takes the remnants of foodstuff offered to Krishna or Krishna Prasad, he will gradually become qualified to rise to the platform of a Vaishnav. And then in the next paragraph, there's a verse from Skanda Purana. Lord Brahma's telling Narada that you wear a flower garland that has been used by Krishna, and you become freed from all disease. Well, that's one thing. but all reactions to sinful activities and gradually become liberated. Now, number 24, dancing before the deity. That's a nice one. It is a rule. You must dance before the deity. And this is where the Dwaraka Mahatmya verse is. A person, it's Lord Krishna speaking, a person who is in a jubilant spirit, who feels profound devotional ecstasy while dancing before me, and who manifests different features of bodily expression, can burn away all the accumulated sinful reactions he's stocked up for many, many thousands of years. And then, from the same book, Narada. Now Narada speaks. From the body of any person who claps and dances before the deity, showing manifestations of ecstasy, all the birds of sinful activities fly away upward. And Prabhupada comments, just as by clapping the hands, one can cause many birds to fly away. Similarly, the birds of all sinful activities which are sitting on the body can be made to fly away simply by dancing and clapping before the deity of Krishna. I remember back in the old days, in the early to mid 70s, like 73 actually, 74 maybe, but right around that time. Devotees were reading Nectar of Devotion for the first time, and they came across this thing about clapping the hands, and the birds of sinful reactions flying away. And in our temple in London, we had a sort of a whole clapping phenomenon. Went on for a few days. We come in, everyone would clap and celebrate it. Sinful reactions are flying away, which is nice. And here's a special question for you, those of you who are doing Bhakti Shastri. There's a verse. It's Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela, chapter 7, verse 82. Madhya Leela 7:82. If you're doing Bhakti Shastri, make a note of it. You get me? So here's what it says. Upon seeing the chanting and dancing of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Lord Nityananda predicted that later there would be dancing and chanting in every village. That's Lord Nityananda made the prediction upon seeing the chanting and dancing of Lord Chaitanya. Every village just means just the whole planet. There'll be chanting and dancing of Hare Krishna. So, yes, predicted by Lord Nityananda. And let me just tell you a little story, devotees, that was told to me by His Holiness Giriraj Swami Maharaj, that His Holiness Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj in Mumbai, just before the construction of the Juhu temple began, he was the main one at least, going to get all the permissions. And it's a whole maze getting permissions from this one, and then that one, and then back to the other one, and then around in circles, and it's a big thing. So one day, Tamal Krishna Maharaj went into the city from Juhu early, and he went to all these different offices to get different permissions, and for whatever different reasons, couldn't get one permission that day. And he came back to the sort of makeshift temple in Juhu. It was just a sort of a tin, real, just very too simple structure for a temple. So he came back and he was there. The kirtan was going on for the evening arati, and he was just feeling a little bit like, sure, what a day. And so he was hardly moving, just standing there in the kirtan, whereas other devotees, they were dancing and moving around and so on. And Srila Prabhupada was there. And Prabhupada came up to Tamal Krishna Goswami and said to him, he had not spoken, no one had spoken to Tamal Krishna Goswami. He just arrived and the kirtan was going on, and he walked in and he was just there. So Prabhupada came in and saw Tamal Krishna Goswami, and Srila Prabhupada said, and bear in mind, he didn't know what had happened that day. And he said, even if the city officials do not give you any permissions, still you must dance in kirtan. Yeah. Still you must dance in kirtan. It's something like, even if you have no desire to progress in Krishna consciousness, Prabhupada told one devotee one time, just desire to desire. Just go through the motions. Vaidhi sadhana bhakti is like that. Sometimes you feel like doing some Krishna conscious activity. Sometimes you may not, due to your conditioning and so on. But still you do it. Still you do it. Because the rule is there. You must do that. And this Vaidhi sadhana bhakti, it's not devotional service on the level of, doing what you feel like doing. It is devotional service on the level of doing what you are meant to do, doing what you're instructed to do, and doing what is good for you. And don't worry too much about, sometimes how you feel. If you just do what you should do, then shortly you will feel nice. Yes, shortly you'll feel nice. Because it's a devotional activity, Krishna is present in it. So when you do it, despite what state of mind you're in, you'll contact Krishna and you'll feel very nice. Okay, so now we go on to number 20. What on earth has happened? Someone was playing with Zoom. Okay, so now we go on to number 25, bowing down in honor of the deity. Now you remember, we read at the beginning of these rules. Do you remember about those rules about offering obeisances? Not offering obeisances on one hand. So now this is bowing down. So, yes, Naradiya Purana. A person who has performed a great ritualistic sacrifice, and a person who has simply offered his respectful obeisances by bowing down to the Lord, cannot be held as equals. How's that? Someone who's done a big ritualistic sacrifice, certainly many people would think, wow, You know, this is really advanced, sacred person on an elevated level, done some big fire yagya or some sort of big ritualistic thing. But Naradiya Purana says a person who has simply bowed down to offer obeisances to the deity is cannot be held as equal to that person, means is much better than the one who did the big yagya, havan, whatever it may have been. And the point is made, Prabhupada makes the point, that if someone does some sort of big material yagya, then they'll get the results, they may get the results, which will be burned up in due course. But the person who is once, Prabhupada says here, once bowed down before the deity will not come back to this world, rather will go directly back to Krishna. And then number 26, well, what would you expect? After bowing down in front of the deity, you must stand up. Yes. So that's the point. Not that you should just stand up before the deity, or the example given there in this very short little explanation is seeing the Ratha Yatra chariot. Not that you should just stand up. First you should bow down. Then you stand up and do something about it. And then, you know, number 27, particularly at least if it's something like Ratha Yatra, or the deities are being taken on palanquin for a tour around the temple grounds like that, then you must follow the deity. So that's very nice, a very nice sequence. And 28, going to the temple. Oh wait, there's a little, a special point here in regards for those of you doing Bhakti Shastri, in regard to this one about following the deity, That there's a verse, it is Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela, chapter 13, verse 98. And it says, everyone was astonished by the dancing of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and even Lord Jagannath became extremely happy to see him. So, wow, I tell you what, these people are pretty heavy people. You have to note the number of the verse, Hare Krishna, which was Madhya Leela 13, verse 98. If you're doing Bhakti Shastri, you make a note of that. Otherwise, don't blame me if things don't work out. So 28, going to the temple of Vishnu or to places of pilgrimage. So what? There's a couple of verses quoted. Persons who attempt to visit the holy places of pilgrimage, Vrindavan, Mathura, or Dwaraka, are actually glorified. By such traveling activities, they can pass over the desert of material existence. So this is another one of those verses which is stressing in one way or another, in some way or another, the importance of visiting sacred places. Yeah, sacred places, temples, places of pilgrimage, and they refer to Hari Bhakti Sudadaya, persons who are impelled by pure devotional service and Krishna consciousness, and who therefore go to see the deities of Vishnu in the temple, will surely get relief from entering again into the prison house of a mother's womb. The prison house. Ugh. Save us. Yeah, so taking birth, that's not a nice thing. If we can be saved from it, excellent. And here's another little special question you can note down for your Bhakti Shastri. Let's say, yeah, it's a verse from Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 10:13. A Vaishnav travels to places of pilgrimage to purify them and reclaim fallen conditioned souls. This is one of the duties of a Vaishnav. Actually, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is not a living entity, but the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. Consequently, he's a fully independent controller, yet in his position as a devotee, he carries out the activities of a devotee. So the point is that a Vaishnav travels to places of pilgrimage for two reasons: to purify the places of pilgrimage and to reclaim the fallen conditioned souls. If you're doing Bhakti Shastri, note that down. Get me? All right. So now we go on to 29, circumambulating the temple of Vishnu. And the first paragraph says that someone who circumambulates the deity can counteract the circumambulation of repeated birth and death in the material world. In the second paragraph, Prabhupada talks about how during Chatumasya, if you circumambulate the temple of the Lord at least 4 times, it's understood you've traveled all over the universe, you've seen all the holy places where the Ganges water is flowing, and you can become very quickly elevated to the platform of devotional service. Let me just read an excerpt. It is one sentence, it's just short. This is from Srila Jiva Goswami, from Bhakti Sandarbha. Listen to this. Just listen to this. A bird that had been killed by a hunter and then taken up in the mouth of a dog. When the dog ran around a temple, the bird attained the results of circumambulating the Lord's temple, and in this way returned to the Lord's transcendental abode. What do you think? It's part of a little bit greater story. A hunter shot a bird with an arrow. The bird was in a tree right next to a temple. And the hunter's dogs came racing over. It was a race. Who will get the body of the bird first? And the bird was mortally wounded, but still alive. And one dog got the bird and then ran around the temple because the other dogs were chasing. He's trying to escape. They want to get the bird off him. So he ran around the temple 3 times. And we don't know what happened to the dog, but as we read here, the bird went back to Godhead. Hare Krishna. So number 30 is Archana. And, the worship of the deity in the temple. And there's a quotation from Sudama. Now this Sudama there are a few Sudamas. This one is a cowherd boy. It's not Sudama the Brahmin. And the whole story, how this all, the verse got spoken, the whole story is told here. It's during the pastime, Krishna's pastime of associating with the wives of the ritualistic Brahmins, getting food from the wives of the ritualistic Brahmins. So one of the cowherd boys, Sudama, says, simply by worshipping Krishna, one can easily achieve all the results of heavenly opulence, liberation, supremacy over the planetary systems of the universe, all the opulences of this material world, and the mystic power of performing the yoga system, which is kind of all very well. This Sudama, one of Krishna's cowherd boyfriends, was on his way to go and meet with those Brahmins. Yeah. And right at the end it said, any person within this world who's engaged in the worship of Vishnu can very easily achieve the ever blissful kingdom of God, known as Vaikuntha Loka. So if you know the story, all the Brahmins refused to give any food. So Krishna told the cowherd boys to approach the wives, and they gave food for Krishna. They brought it. And so they got the mercy of Krishna. So now we go on to 31, rendering service to the Lord. First paragraph, it seems it's pretty much aimed at wealthy people. Yeah. Any person who can arrange for service to the Lord in the same way that a king is given service by his attendants is surely elevated to the abode of Krishna after death. So Prabhupada goes on to explain how in India, this is how things work. This is how they worship the deities in the temples. And yeah, it's in like a very opulent royal fashion. And so Prabhupada in the second paragraph goes on to say that, yes, if you're rich, do we have any rich people here? Anyway, okay. You probably wouldn't say if you were. But if you're rich, use your money for the worship of the deity in the temple. And then, third paragraph was basically it's Maharaj Prithu talking about how the Supreme Personality of Godhead delivers the conditioned souls if they render devotional service. Yeah. And I want to give, I just mentioned something from Jiva Goswami Bhakti Sandarbha. I want to give a few examples. Srila Prabhupada, well, this is from Srila Prabhupada, in a class on Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, verse 40, you can look it up. Prabhupada says, because this is all about rendering service to the Lord and the benefit of that. So Prabhupada says, there is story that in the deity room a lamp was burning. You know, oil lamp has to be watched. Sometimes the wick has to be pushed. So the lamp was almost going to be extinguished. In the meantime, a rat came there. He thought that it is something eatable. So he touched with mouth the wick, and it became pushed. You know, pushed forward, so then it burns, because it was about to just sort of submerge into the oil. So it got pushed out, and then it burnt for a longer time. Simply by that action, he got salvation. Just try to understand. Because he gave some service to the deity. Here's a couple of other things. Listen to these. This is now Jiva Goswami. Even the dim reflection of devotional service destroys all sins and brings one to the abode of Lord Vishnu. Narada Purana explains that two intoxicated drunkards, proud as cuckoos, once waved a stick tied to a rag as they danced in an old abandoned temple of the Lord. These drunkards attained the result of raising a flag in the Lord's temple, and in this way they returned to the Lord's transcendental abode. And he continues, even if mixed with offenses, devotional service is still very powerful. This is seen in the following verses of the Vishnu Dharma Purana, spoken by a Rakshasa to a Brahmin who protected himself by chanting a mantra, invoking the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the Rakshasa says, I ran to eat you, but somehow you protected yourself with a mantra. O Brahman, by touching this mantra, I have suddenly become pure in heart. What mantra did you chant to protect yourself? I wanted to ask that question. I do not understand it. I do not understand its power. By touching it, I've become free of all material desires. So, yes. In the Janmashtami Mahatmya of the Brahmanda Purana, this is Jiva Goswami quoting, a certain prostitute did not meet any of her customers on Janmashtami day. By thus observing Janmashtami, she became liberated. Another story is told in the Narada Purana. So that he could use the place as a suitable place for his sinful activities, a sinner once cleaned a temple of the Lord. For this service, he became liberated and attained the supreme abode of the Lord. This is all authentic, coming from Srila Jiva Goswami. Okay, next is singing, number 32, singing. So, a Brahmin, it's a verse then, a Brahmin who's constantly engaged in singing the glories of the Lord is surely elevated to the same planet as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Lord Krishna appreciates the singing even more than the prayers offered by Lord Shiva. And then Sankirtan, just see how much, all sorts of things there about Sankirtan. So, when a person loudly chants, this is Sankirtan. When a person loudly chants the glories of the Lord's activities, qualities, form, etc., his chanting is called Sankirtan. Sankirtan also refers to the congregational chanting of the holy name of the Lord. So there's all sorts of quotations there. Let's just say a couple of them. In paragraph 2, it's actually the second quotation in the second half of paragraph 2, Chaitanya Charitamrita. A person who chants the holy name of Krishna once can counteract the resultant actions of more sinful activities than he is able to perform. Yes. So a sinful man can perform many, many sinful activities, but he's unable to perform so many that they can't be wiped out by once uttering Krishna. And then in the fourth paragraph, we go down a little bit, Prabhupada makes the point that there are many types of songs songs about the Lord's activities. And the chanting of them is Sankirtan. There's Brahma Samhita, sung by Lord Brahma. Narada Pancharatra, sung by Narada Muni. Srimad Bhagavatam, sung by Shukadev Goswami. If these songs are heard by anyone, they get free, get out of the clutches of material life. And then let's go on now to 34, japa. Chanting a mantra or hymn softly and slowly is called japa. And chanting the same mantra loudly is called kirtan. For example, uttering the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, very softly, only for one's own hearing, is called japa. There's a definition of japa for you. Chanting softly, only for your own hearing. Chanting it loudly would be kirtan. Yes. And in the second paragraph, Padma Purana says, for any person who's chanting the holy name, either softly or loudly, the paths to liberation and even heavenly happiness are at once open. It's interesting. I wonder why he quoted that. Okay, now we go on to submission. This is interesting. It now becomes a little more complex. We're now getting into prayer, the process of prayer. And you'll see in the first paragraph, Prabhupada lists out 3 types of prayers. Some prarthanatmaka, very feelingly offering prayers. Dainya vodika, humbly submitting oneself, in other words, an expression of humility. And lalasa mai, desiring a perfectional stage. As Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, Kabe habe bolo se dinama. When, oh when will that day come mine? When my offenses ceasing, taste for the name increasing. Yes, when will that day come? So now the thing is here, if we look at, where now? Paragraph 2, okay. Paragraph 2, wait a minute. Paragraph 2. Well, it's an example. Paragraph 2, okay, is an example of the second type. The second type, humbly submitting yourself. My Lord, I know that young girls have natural affection for young boys, and that young boys have natural affection for young girls. I'm praying at your lotus feet that my mind may become attracted unto you in the same spontaneous way. Okay, well that's, Prabhupada says, a statement of submission. Number 2. Then, let's see, where are we getting? Is it? Oh, okay. Anyway, paragraph number 3 is also humble submission. Yeah. My Lord, my dear Lord, there's no sinful living entity who's more of a sinner than me. Yes. Nor is there a greater offender. I'm so greatly sinful and offensive that when I come to confess my sinful activities before you, I'm ashamed. Yeah, okay. So that's submission and humility, that's for sure. And then lalasa mai, praying for a perfectional stage. That's in paragraph 6, is it? Where am I? Let me just clarify things here. Okay, paragraph 5. In the Narada Pancharatra, that paragraph. My dear Lord, when shall that day come when you'll ask me to fan your body, and according to your pleasure you'll say, just fan me in this way? In other words, this devotee wants, he's aspiring for Krishna Prema, to go back to Godhead and go into the personal service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In terms of, well, feelingly offer prayers, I mean, it's a little subtle. It's actually a little subtle. Some would say that the first prayer we read is in the category of very feelingly offering prayers, whereas the second one was more humble submission. But right at the end, in the last paragraph, Prabhupada says, in other words, one should learn how to cry for the Lord. One should learn the small technique, and he should be very eager and actually cry to become engaged in some particular type of service. This is called loliam, and such tears are the price for the highest perfection. If one develops this loliam, or excessive eagerness for meeting and serving the Lord in a particular way, that is the price to enter into the kingdom of God. Otherwise, there's no material calculation for the value of such a ticket. The only price is loliam lalasa mai, desire and great eagerness. Then 36, reciting notable prayers. Well, Prabhupada makes the point that there are many prayers in our books. The whole Bhagavad Gita contains many authorized prayers, especially the 11th chapter. Gautamiya Tantra, all the verses are called prayers. Srimad Bhagavatam, there are hundreds of prayers. And in the last paragraph, in the Nishinga Purana, it's stated, any person who comes before the deity of Lord Krishna and begins to chant different prayers is immediately relieved from all the reactions of sinful activities and becomes eligible without any doubt to enter into Vaikuntha Loka. You see, the thing is, the 135 about submission, this means you express your own feelings. And 35. 36 means you repeat the sacred prayers of the great devotees and great personalities. 37, partaking of prasad. Any person who honors the prasad and regularly eats it, like the devotees in Radharanath temple, not exactly in front of the deity, along with Charanamrita, immediately can achieve the results of pious activities, which are obtained through 10,000 performances of sacrificial rites, and more, and more. And then the same point is there about drinking Charanamrita. Padma Purana says, even if you have never done any pious activity, if you just take Charanamrita, Shri Shri Radharanath Shri Giri Govardhan Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Ki Jai. If you just take Charanamrita, you'll go back to Godhead. Let's just have a look here. Let's just finish this chapter. That was Charanamrita. 39 is smelling the incense and flowers. It's similar to the point about the garlands. You're taking those things which are offered to the Lord, remnants of things offered to the Lord. And a point is made that as a person can be saved from a snake bite by sniffing some herbs. So if you just sniff the incense offered to the deity, you're cured from all your material contamination. And in the second paragraph, Prabhupada makes an interesting and important point. Second paragraph, is it? No, it's third paragraph, sorry. Any devotee coming into the temple should always offer something to the deity, fruit, flowers, incense, etc. That's important and very nice. Then touching the deity, but only can be done. Well, the verse says, only a person who's initiated as a Vaishnav and is executing devotional service has the right to touch the body of the deity. And then seeing the deity. Well, if touching the deity is so beneficial, then what to speak of seeing the deity? So, yeah, highly beneficial. And then observing the arati also. Observing the arati is extremely beneficial. In the arati ceremony, if someone sees the face of the Lord while arati is going on, he can be relieved of all sinful reactions coming from many, many thousands and millions of years past. He's even excused from the killing of a Brahmin or similar prohibited activities. Bhavishya Purana. In such a ceremony, if even a Chandala, dog eater, simply out of curiosity, sees the Lord on the chariot, he becomes counted as one of the associates of Lord Vishnu. Hare Krishna. So there you go, devotees, and we will continue on Monday evening. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada Ki. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.